Hello, Year 3, and it's time for your whole class reading today. And we are looking at How to Train Your Dragon by Crescenda Cal. And we're starting chapter 3, Heroes or Exiles. The boys scrambled over the slimy pebbles at the edge of the beach and back up Madman's Gully, the gorge they had climbed through a couple of hours before. This was a narrow crack in the cliffs filled with large rocks. They tried to move as quickly as they could, but this is difficult when you are slipping and sliding over huge stones covered in ice, and they made painfully slow progress. A dragon that hadn't been put off by the snow came shrieking down into the gorge. He landed on Warty Hog's back and started savaging him, sinking his fangs into Warty Hog's shoulder and ripping red lines into his arms. Gobber bashed the dragon on the nose with the handle of his axe, and the dragon let go and flapped away. But the whole wave of dragons replaced him, pouring into the canyon with awful rasping cries, fire shooting from their nostrils and melting the snow before them. Talons spread wickedly as they swooped downward. What do you think heroes or exile means? What is a gorge? And what does the adverb painfully suggest about the movement of the dragons? They made painfully slow progress. So what are the dragons doing at that moment in time? And what does the verb pouring suggest about the movement of the dragons? Gobber stood, legs wide apart, and whirled his big double-headed axe. He threw back his great hairy head and yelled a terrible primeval yell that echoed down the sides of the gorge and made the hairs on the back of Hiccup's neck stick straight up like spines on a sea urchin. Individually, the dragons tend to have a healthy sense of self-preservation, but they are braver when they hunt in packs. They knew now that they had the advantage of massive numbers, so they didn't check their flying for an instant. They just kept on coming. Gobber let go of the axe. Spinning end to end, the axe soared up through the softly falling snow. It hit the biggest dragon of the lot, killing him instantly, and then carried on going, landing in a snowdrift hundreds of feet away and disappearing. This made the rest of the dragons think a bit. Some of them scrambled over each other in their haste to fly away, yelping like dogs. The others came to a halt, hovering uncertainly, screaming defiance, but keeping their distance. What does the word primeval mean? Can you find and explain the simile in the first paragraph? I'll give you a hint, it's the last line of the first paragraph. What does the author mean when she writes, "This makes the rest of the dragons think a bit"? And what does the word defiance mean? "Waste of a good axe," grunted Gobber. "Keep going, boys, they could come back." Hiccup needed no encouragement to keep going. As soon as he got out of the gorge and onto the marshy land behind it, he broke into a stumbling run, every now and then falling flat on his face in the snow. Sometime later, when Gobber reckoned they were a safe distance from Wild Dragon Cliff, he yelled at the boys to stop. Very carefully, he counted heads again to check he hadn't lost anybody. Gobber had spent an unpleasant 10 minutes standing at the mouth of the dragon's cave, wondering why there was such a terrible racket and what he was going to say to Stoic the Vast if he lost his precious son and their heir for good. Something tactful and sensitive, he supposed, but tact and sensitivity were not Gobber's strong points, and he took the first 5 minutes to come up with, "Hiccup copped it, sorry," and then spent the second 5 minutes tearing his beard out. Consequently, although secretly mightily relieved, he was not in a good mood, and as soon as he could get his So why was Hiccup stumbling as he ran on? Can you remember what happened to him as he came out of the cave? How does Gobber check that he has all the boys? And then as soon as he could get his breath back, he exploded all over the place as the boys stood shivering violently in a bedraggled line. Never in 14 years have I come across such a load of hopeless barnacles as you lot. Which of you useless mollusks was responsible for waking up the dragons? I was, said Hiccup, which wasn't strictly true. Oh, that's brilliant, bellowed Gobber. Just brilliant. Our future leader shows off his magnificent leadership skills. At the tender age of 10.5, he does his best to annihilate himself and the rest of you in a simple military exercise. Snotlout sniggered. You find something amusing about that, Snotlout? Asked Gobber with dangerous softness. Everybody is on limpet rations for the next 3 weeks, the boys groaned. Smart work, Hiccup, sneered Snotlout. I can't wait to see you in action on the battlefield. Silence, yelled Gobber. So how old is Hiccup? And what are the boys forced to eat and for how long? This is your initiation, not a day out in the country. Silence or you'll be lunching on lugworms for the rest of your lives. Why do you think that Hiccup decides to take the blame for waking the dragons? Some interesting questions there. Don't forget you can re-watch this and go through it again to check those questions out whenever you need to.